Hi, so good afternoon to everybody. You are welcome again to another session. That's actually the session 4 of the art of storytelling for creative for freelancers and creatives. I'm so excited to come your way again for this fourth session. And as always, I'm Jacob Osae, your instructor for today. For today, we're going to look at writing description, its story, prose description. I think that's one of the most important things as writers that you like to get in face, because it's through the description that we get to have mental images of what you're actually trying to communicate to your reading, to the audience. Description is very important. Like, it's actually something that I dedicated so much of my time to learn, and I can say that it's a very pivotal and instrumental part of our creative writing journey that you would like to pay attention closely to. Writing description is very important, and today that's what we're going to look at, and hopefully we'll do a bit of applicative measures with regards to writing description. Great. So the first thing that comes to mind when it comes to writing description, like the element of discussion, is show, don't tell. The art of storytelling is about telling a story, but you're not telling your story with your mouth. You're telling your story with your pen, or you're telling your story with your piece of paper, with your imagination. You know what's happening or what you are seeing in your mind, and you want your reader to actually see the same thing. And the only way you can do that here is you're not going to shout and tell that this is what the person is, this is how happened, this is the color of the house. It wasn't square shaped, it had a triangular, covering and all those kind of things. It gives a mental picture of what you're trying to describe, but you can't say that one with your mouth. You're going to use your brain. And that is one of the most challenging things when it comes to storytelling, because you would have to have good diction, good this imagery to be able to create an infallible description so that people can actually connect to know that, yeah, this is what this guy is talking about. A practical example of writing description, I don't know if I want to show it's I think I shared a couple of stories with you in the beginning. There's a story that I shared, a complicated story. A complicated story, I believe, was not more really of a descriptive kind of story. It was more like a prose poem kind of story where there was more metaphor than imagery. Writing description basically focuses on imagery. So in a novel that I wrote in 2019 titled A Walking Rainbow, I think A Walking Rainbow is one of the best novels that I was able to explore imagery so well, so that people who read the novel were like, they could feel actually that they were inside what was happening, because a lot of people could relate to it, because it was actually a university story, and most of the people who read it were actually in the university. And for someone who has been in the university for the past 5 years, it was not so difficult for us to be able to create a perfect picture of how life was on the campus. So creating imagery is very important. And like I said earlier, we don't tell with our mouth, we tell with our pen. So you want to get the best adjectives, you want to get the best adverbs to be able to describe a particular scene in a story. Another thing also is that in the Raven, I feel I was also able to do well to create a lot of imagery where you actually could be able to see that this actually what's happening. So I'm going to read a sample of a scene from the Raven so that you get the imagery that I'm talking about, where how you can create it practically as a writer, because it's very important. I've read a lot of books where the imagery is quite bad, but anyway, it's a great novel, but the imagery is very important. The thing is that in writing text, you are not actually looking at a movie. So your imagery is what your writer is seeing in his mind as he's writing. So you have to do it well, or some people can lose track of your activities and whatever you're working with. So that is the importance of imagery. So I'm going to share a short story quickly, then you're going to look at it quickly, and hopefully you're going to look at how I created the imagery with this particular story. So this, I think, the second chapter of The Raven, for those who know The Raven, It's a young adult science fiction, a fantasy novel that was created by myself. And yeah, so there's a scene in the novel I'm going to read. The sky streaked with passionate twilight rays far away in the cosmos. There was rustling and tendering of forest leaves. Two legs carried rapidly, chasing a white rabbit. At age 15, Ryan Kube was full of exuberance and knowledgeable in hunting. She was slim, dark, and beautiful. Her father, Pine Kube, the great hunter of the kingdom of Mahara, taught her how to hunt. As her father always advised, the best time to hunt was at dawn or at twilight. This explained her hunting expedition at the time of the day. The twilight scarlet rays were definite, the perfect moment for a hunt. Ra had bid her mother farewell and had glided into the autumnal forest for a hunt. Still on her heels, she moved the bow in her hands to the back and followed the small animal that was making her hands more tedious than she had envisioned. As she moved closer, the white rabbit also moved faster. Under normal circumstances, the best thing Raya could have done was to use what she had in her hands, a bow and a quiver full of arrows. Her father taught her how to use them, and although she had not perfected the skill, she believed she could capture the rabbit just like her father did with other animals. In actual fact, she wanted to capture the rabbit and not to kill it. Therefore, she reasoned that using the bow and the arrow would result in its death. As the rabbit increased its velocity, she began to gather in her heart, I have to do something before I lose this animal. Then, in a resolute gaze of might, Raya shot an arrow which moved in a rectilinear fashion and plunged into a wood just a few meters away from the abdomen of the rabbit. This was the third time Raya had missed that day. She let out a deep breath and cursed. What is the meaning of this part that this easily all the time? Raya would not give up. She continued to scurry behind the rabbit. As she watched the animal jump over three straps, she saw a raven fly past her in the forest. At the sound of the raven, Raya had an idea. The raven, this is a good omen, she said and halted in her tracks. She then fastened a rope around her. Another arrow stood closer enough to have an impeccable view of the rabbit and hurled the arrow. Raya let out a smile and anticipated the arrow pierce into a shed, which snapped its lock, ejecting a secret enclosure, a cage that had been hidden in the forest. Upon contact, the rabbit lunged into the cage and closed it. Simply put, the rabbit had been captured. The cage was only used when all options and strategies were exhausted. And this an amazing description of how a young lady was able to capture a rabbit. So you see the description. The description is very, very, very vivid. You can imagine what's happening. It's like someone running in the bush and following the right rabbit. And his vision, her vision is at the end, I have to capture this animal. And this is actually what I was talking about. A perfect description of a scene in a novel. So mostly it's good to have a fair idea of what you are writing so that you can give a perfect description of it. So when you're writing an office scene, you if it's difficult to picture an office scene, you want to go to a practical office and sit there and put down certain characteristics of the office in a book. So that when you come back, you can actually create the particular scene. Writing description is very necessary, very important because that's how you can able to connect what you had in mind to your audience. That's how you can make your story more relatable. Because when the audience reads and is able to picture your description, you get to be a part of your story. You get to be a part of what you're telling. And that's the amazing and incredible part of or incredible thing when it comes to writing description. So it's a very interesting and very imperative aspect of creative writing because that's actually what it does. So that's for our next. We're going to look at what makes a story relatable. Yeah, like I said earlier, what mainly makes a story relatable is if actually what you are telling or your description is very, very practical to everyday life. If your description is, yeah, we want to describe a marriage ceremony. You know, you want to go into details and do your research for. You want to even be at a wedding or be at a marriage ceremony so that you can know the parameters that make up a practical and a real marriage ceremony so they can put it on paper because the one of the ways you make your story relatable to people is if you can create the reality of the scene or whatever you want to talk about. If you want to create a school setting or a lecture session, you know, a teacher and student, what are some of the ways teachers relate to students? How do teachers teach? How do students respond to the teaching and the lecturing of lecturers or teachers? These are some of the ways you can make your story relatable. For example, if you want to write a scene about a basketball, a scene about a fight, a scene about a football that's happening, you actually have had the opportunity to watch a lot of football matches, so you can create something similar. And all the parameters that make your description real is what makes your story relatable. So at this juncture, I just want to say you want to go back and maybe write about, let's say you want to create a scene about, uh, let's say you want to create a scene about, we're creating a scene about how a young lady who is pregnant give birth. For me, I've not seen that scene before. So how are you going to do it? How are you going to create that scene so well so that people who have actually experienced it can actually relate that this is actually true. This is what actually happens when people are giving birth. And for certain, I think you may have the opportunity to do it well, but you can do it better if you're experienced it. On the other side, you can also do it better if you get to talk to someone who has actually gone through labor before. So and that's one of the ways. So the ways you can actually create excellent description is to get details of a scene. If you yourself you have not had hands-on experience in that particular incident, you want to get details about this. You want to talk to someone who actually has experienced that before. You want to be in that certain and write the parameters that make up that particular thing. You want to actually fetch all the information that will make your scene relatable, and that's how you can create perfect description that are relatable to your audience. And it's a very imperative part of your storytelling process because it's very very important, because there's no novel that mostly you don't have the setting being created, a perfect description, because that's how we can see through the eyes of the writer that this is what the writer had in mind, and that's what the audience also has. And that if the audience and the writer are on the same page, I think the story process is going to be quite easier and better. So that's all for this session. Thank you very much for joining us. I look forward to seeing you again next week for the next session. Have a lovely week, and let's keep on writing, writing, writing. And also, I am Jacob Osae, and I'll see you in the next session. Bye.